welcome back to Behind the Piece, the Emerine podcast. We've talked about designers, gemologists, students, and CEOs, each conversation adding a layer to how I think about building Emerine responsibly. But there's a level above all of that, the systems and supply chains that determine whether sustainability is even possible at scale. That's what today is about. I'm Michelle, founder of Emerine, and I'm joined by Danielle, a sustainable jewelry consultant, researcher, and lecturer based in Berlin. Danielle advises some of the most influential organizations shaping the future of the jewelry industry. CIBJO, the Responsible Jewellery Council, Fairmined and Rapaport. Her master's thesis focuses on embedding sustainability, traceability, and circularity with the jewelry luxury supply chain. She's also a co-founder of Truly Precious, a non-profit initiative created with fellow industry professionals to share knowledge and advance jewelry and sustainability in jewelry. Danielle now runs her consultancy, Corey Consultancy, where she works with brands and organizations to build more responsible and transparent practices across the supply chain. Before this, she spent over a decade as a jewelry designer and educator. What makes Danielle's work most powerful is she doesn't just advise individual brands. She works on changing how the entire industry thinks and operates. Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, so you've had a fascinating path from studying jewelry design and running your own brand, and to now consulting for global industry organizations. Most designers either stay in the studio or move into business. You've moved into research and system change. What shifted for you? What made you want to understand the bigger picture?
So I think as a jewelry designer and a goldsmith, I worked really closely with materials. And at some point I thought that it doesn't make a lot of sense that I don't know much about their history or journey. And I started asking some questions, the suppliers that I was already working with for a few years, and couldn't really get a lot of answers. It was more than 10 years ago. A lot of things have changed since then, but still, I think still most suppliers won't have the information you would be interested to know, even the country of origin, let alone a lot of other more sophisticated sustainability parameters. So this was for me kind of like the shift towards doing the MA focused on sustainability, because I felt like I'm onto something, but I don't really have the tools or the means to ask the right questions and gain the answers that I was looking for.
Yeah, that's such an important shift from making jewelry to understanding the infrastructure that makes jewelry possible. And I think that's exactly what this conversation is about. So let's go there. So when most people, including young designers like me, think about jewelry, we think about the finished piece, the design, the stone, the setting, but you've spent years researching what happens before any of that. So can you walk us through what the jewelry supply chain actually looks like from raw material to finished piece, and where are the hidden steps that most consumers and even many designers never see?
So all of these materials are coming from mines. So they are natural in a way that they are in the soil, but they are not like vegetables or fruits that can go back to the soil. So once they are mined using quite extreme tools and procedures, sometimes explosives, definitely excavators, like heavy machinery. And also in most situations, these mines are located in really rural areas, whereas designers or retail operations operate in high streets, in cities, really heavily modernized environments. So this is a massive gap in realities. So this is where most of these materials start their lives. And they definitely don't start their life in the shiny, super glamorous way that we know them from the shops. They pass along many procedures from initial refining and processing, and then being in stones, they are moved to being cleaned and cut and polished. And only after all of these steps, they start being combined with other materials. And the same goes to gold or other precious metals. They're passing through a few refining processes until you get the gold that you know from the shop or from the supplier. And then we go to the manufacturing, where the gold bars or the stones are combined with other materials to become jewelry pieces. And this includes soldering and cutting and combining different elements and setting the stones. And only after the piece is finished and all the elements are combined together, we can move to the polishing part, which makes the jewelry shiny and bright as we know it from the shop.
Yes.
So there are a lot of different processes and also a lot of different geographies around the world. So it's not even that you can go into one country and find all the processes and production happening in one place. These materials are moving all around the globe.
Yeah, I think that completely changes how I think about just a simple piece of jewelry. Okay, so you speak and write a lot about traceability, being able to follow a material or product through every step of its journey. I've heard the term used constantly, but when I try to actually apply it to something like emerine, I don't fully know how. So what does traceability actually mean in practice for a jewelry brand? And how far are we from it being the norm rather than the exception?
Unfortunately, we are quite far from it being the norm. I think it's the first step in order to address a lot of other sustainability issues, because when you don't know where materials come from or where they pass, you don't know which issues you might need to tackle or what risks are associated, or also what opportunities lies in these scenarios. So first of all, we need to understand our supply chain, and it's kind of like being an investigator. You need to slowly go back the journey of the materials that you work with. So ask your immediate suppliers some questions about where do they source the materials from, and if they can give you like a contact detail. If you can ask more questions about if they come with any documentation, if you get like any import or export reports, that can also help tracking back things. And then slowly you can go back. Another possibility is to build relationships with producing countries. You can try and find a relation to like a specific mine or a specific community that works with materials that you use. In certain situations it can help, but in certain situations it also makes some things more complicated, because you would need to deal with a lot of other processes along the journey are now taken care of by other people. So I think that it mainly means that you go into this journey of asking a lot of questions and being persistent, and even if you don't get the answers, you try and keep looking for another way to better understand where your materials are coming from.
Yes, so it's not just about knowing your supplier, it's about knowing every link in the chain. So is that even realistic for a small brand just starting out, or is it only achievable at a certain scale?
I think that a lot of these things are a matter of how much you're passionate about it and how much it's part of your brand's identity. Because if it is, then it makes a lot of sense that you would invest in that, because it goes along with the story of the brand or the values of the brand. And then it can also bring a lot of benefits in terms of storytelling and narrative. And even if at some point you would want to donate something to something that is related to your values or what the brand is all about, then it makes sense that it would be based on concrete, specific information that you have about your supply chain. I think it is realistic. It's a lot about trying to think creatively. So maybe a mechanism that works for a really big company is not the one that fits smaller jewelers. I think one of the biggest obstacles, I think, is that small companies, they might not have the funds to deal with traceability in like a tech savvy solution, but maybe creating like a consortium of brands that source things together, that track things together, that helps each other compensate where data is missing, could be a good solution. I don't know, maybe you can look around in your region or in your country for brands that might use similar materials in similar quantities, in similar quality, and maybe together you can help each other. So one is responsible for gold, one is responsible for diamonds, one is responsible for specific gemstones, and then slowly you gather the whatever information you need as a group. And I think this can also have a lot of commercial benefits as well. It also makes things more complicated because you need to set up like business agreements with other companies. But I think that small businesses need to think about their uniqueness, which is they can move faster, they can change things faster. And this is a great asset, especially in the times that we are living in now, because we see like geopolitical changes all the time, and they could drastically impact your supply chain. So if you have the ability or the agility to deal with that in a more flexible way, this can be a great benefit.
Okay, so you've written extensively about circular economy principles in jewelry for publications like Rapaport and JCK magazine. So I understand the concept in theory, keeping materials in use, eliminating waste, but jewelry feels complicated because people hold on to pieces for decades or pass them down. So what does circularity actually look like in jewelry, and what are the most promising strategies the industry is starting to adopt?
So it's a complex topic, as you said, in jewelry, because especially when we're talking about premium and fine jewelry, these materials and objects have a lot of financial value, but also a lot of emotional and sentimental value as well. So it's quite hard for a lot of people to get just rid of them or sell them or pass them on. But at the same time, I think these materials are also extremely durable. You know, just think about the fact that diamonds were created somehow through volcanic activity, so they can survive anything, earthquakes, like natural disasters. And I think that it also makes sense that, you know, it took the earth like millions of years to create them. So it also makes sense that we would use them for millions of years instead of constantly mining new materials. So I think that my perception, at least, is coming from few different directions. So it's a lot about educating consumers that the things that they are not in use are valuable and that they could be repurposed. So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they would need to sell it to a stranger. This could also be things that transform into new jewelry for themselves, for their family members, to inherit to future generations and so on. Because these materials and objects have a lot of value, and they could be kept within the family or within the story or in the scope that you wish to keep them. So I think this is one aspect that, as you say, like consumers might not use them. It could be sitting in drawers or jewelry boxes for decades, not being used, and yet people continue to buy new things. So I think this is one aspect. The other thing is to encourage, I think, companies to encourage their customers to bring back things that they don't need. So companies like Cartier or like big companies that have been existing for decades, if not centuries, could easily encourage their clientele to do these kind of things. Because I think the difficult part with jewelry is that usually because of the financial value, these are not things that you would find in a garbage bin. You know, people don't throw away their jewelry. But still, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's been used, and we keep on mining all the time. So I think that it's also about the industry seeing that as a business opportunity of how can you build a business that is only about like repurposing minerals. How can this be economically viable? How can this be appealing to companies and to consumers to use? Just think about the amount of stones that maybe you could repurpose from jewelry that are not being used. You can separate the different materials and then repolish the stones if they need, because they've been used and they are not shiny anymore. And that's it. You can have a full batch of new old stones. For example, with gold, I mean, it's more common to find companies that use recycled gold, but there are a lot of issues with recycled gold because it, especially in the last few, I want to say like 10, 15 years, it's been more and more used as a way to also smuggle illegal gold to the world gold stream, because of the prices being so high of gold. And the fact that there isn't a mandatory traceability system means that we can't prove for sure that illegal gold is being entered into, or like where it comes or how to stop it and so on. So it's connected back to where we started the conversation. Once traceability and transparency will be more implemented as a common act, it would be easier to prove that the recycled gold that is used is actually recycled gold and separate it from illegal activities. So I think that it's it's a multi-stakeholders approach, because each actor needs to do their own part. And still, I think there are not a lot of incentives within the industry, but also from outside regulations, policies to do that. So we still keep on mining all the time.
You've worked across multiple levels of the industry through your like consultancy, and also through like initiatives like Truly Precious, which focuses on like education and knowledge sharing. So how do you distinguish between brands that are genuinely transforming their practice and brands that are just using sustainability as like a marketing language? So what should consumers and young designers actually look for to tell the difference?
So I think that it's a lot about having an honest and authentic conversation. And it's also with how things are reflected in marketing. So if you hear a lot of big promises about like goals in the future, it doesn't necessarily mean anything about what's being done today or what's been done last year. The fact that a lot of companies say by 2050 we will be carbon neutral, or we won't have any plastic, whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean anything about what they're doing today. So I think we need to demand for more specific claims that are backed by information about things that are done now. So this is one thing. And it sounds like really nerdy and not compelling as a marketing thing, but this could also be framed in a really nice, appealing slogan language. So I think the more specific you are, the better. So stating things really explicitly. Also, I think being honest about things that you don't know or you don't do, it's fine. I think it's better than having big promises and then people discover that it's all like a soap bubble that can be exploded with a pin. And I think that it's a lot about like talking to people in eye level, understanding that you don't want to be caught up through an investigation about the bad things that you do or things that you stated that are not precise, or actually lies even, you know. I think that we need to be really understand that people now have access to all the information around the world, and people are being sharp and smart about that they could easily get the nuances of a lot of things, and that it's better to state what you know and what you don't know, what you do and what you don't do, rather than promising like a Disney fairy tale where in the end it's all a lie.
So it's about looking at systems and transparency, not just claims. So what's one question I should be asking myself about Emerine to make sure I'm not accidentally greenwashing?
So I think that you should think about what moves you as a founder, as a jeweler. What are the important values for you? And then try to look where they could be presented along the supply chain. So for example, if your thing is like you're a women-led business and you're going to hire only women, and this is kind of like your thing, it might make sense to look for suppliers that are also like that, or for communities that mine the materials that are women-led, or that benefits support women organizations or women entrepreneurship, or I don't know. So I think that it needs to be something that is associated with your brand identity and with you as the leader of this organization, because then I think it also goes back to the authenticity element of that, because then it feels that it's aligned and that it really means something, and it would also be easier to reflect it in a marketing story.
Yeah. So you consult for organizations like CIBJO and the Responsible Jewellery Council, bodies that set standards for the whole industry. So for someone like me who's just starting out, these organizations feel quite distant. So what role do they actually play in shaping what's possible for individual designers? And what should young designers know about the standards and frameworks that exist, even if we're not yet big enough to be formally certified?
So I would differentiate the two organizations because they operate a bit quite differently. So the Responsible Jewellery Council is a certification body. Their standard, I mean, I know some small companies that are certified by the Responsible Jewellery Council, but the majority are bigger companies because it does require a lot of compliance, which is a lot of evidence that you would need to collect, and this is quite heavy in terms of workload, and it's not something that a small brand can easily do, but still they still have a lot of resources that you can read. Their focus is on responsible aspects within the jewelry industry, so if you want to be knowledgeable about these kind of topics, it might be worth to kind of like follow what they are doing. They also have some educational materials about, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN. So their focus is really on responsibility aspects within the jewelry industry. And I think they also have presence all around the world. They have a big Asian brand, they have a European, branch, they have a European one, they have an American one that for North and South America. So they kind of like overview the standard on a global lens. And it could also be that you decide, I can't be certified because it's too much of a work for now, but maybe I work only with certified suppliers. So you would look for suppliers that are RJC certified, and then it doesn't mean that your brand is certified, but it would mean something about the performance of your supply chain. So this is one thing. CIBJO, on the other hand, is a much older organization. It's just turned 100 years, if I'm not mistaken. And it has some aspects that focus on responsibility or responsible sourcing and corporate social responsibility, but they do a lot of other things as well. They support the industry in a much broader scale. They have members, again, all around the world for every material that you can imagine that is associated with jewelry, also coral, pearls, like synthetic stones, everything. They have a lot of information that is publicly available, that is easier, I think, to understand, and they do focus a lot on the legal aspect of the industry. So how can we make sure that whatever claims we use are legally okay?
So even if I can't afford certification now, like understanding these frameworks helps me build Emerine in a way that's aligned with where the industry is heading.
Yes.
Okay, so
and also they offer a lot of things that they are trying to address small and medium-sized businesses. So they do offer some things publicly open.
Okay, so final question. If you could force every new jewelry brand to do one thing differently from day one, the decision that separates brands that greenwash from brands that actually transform their practices, what would it be and why?
I think that the main thing that I would change is understanding the supply chain. So really kind of like being exposed to how it's built and how it's handled. And this is through transparency. So getting exposed to a lot of stories and narratives and realities that are tied to where materials come from and where they are processed and how they are manufactured and so on. Because I think that a lot of people still don't understand these realities because they are far away from their own position. I can tell you, I learned goldsmithing and jewelry manufacturing for 4 years in university. And although it was a while ago, the word mine was never mentioned. And when I did my master's in sustainability, I was quite shocked because I reflected on that and I was like, nobody ever talked with us about where things come from, not even generally speaking. So I think then new people entered the industry without this understanding, and they could perform in the industry for decades without understanding what's behind them and what's in front of them. And I think this is a big problem. And I also believe that most people, once they would get exposed to these issues, it would be hard for them to ignore them.
I think that's like what I needed to hear. So thank you so much for this conversation. What struck me most is the idea that sustainability in jewelry isn't just a design choice, it's a system challenge, and it requires understanding supply chains, engaging with industry standards, embracing transparency even when it's uncomfortable, and thinking in circles rather than in straight lines. So as I build Emerine, I'm going to carry this idea that I need to understand the whole chain, not just part of it, because the decisions I make now about material sourcing and how I talk about my brand will shape what Emerine is for years to come. So to everyone listening, whether you're a designer, a student, or someone who just loves jewelry and wants to make better choices, I hope this episode gave you a new way of seeing what's behind every piece. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep designing with intention. Thank you.